Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name's Emily if you're new here, and I'm just here to talk about the books I read. Today I just wanted to talk about some of the fantasy novels I've read so far this year, just to give a little recap. Since I recently started my channel, I didn't have any other previous opportunity to talk about them with y'all, so yeah, let's just get into those. The first one I read this year is a beloved classic, of course, The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is my well-loved and reread many times copy that I've had since I was probably about 11 or 12. I read The Hobbit for the first time in 6th grade, I believe, actually as part of class when I was around 12. And I was just completely captivated by Bilbo's story and the adventure and the tale Tolkien wove. And immediately after this, I read The Lord of the Rings, and this story and The Lord of the Rings completely sent me into a fantasy tailspin, and ever since then I have loved the genre. This was probably the first fantasy book I ever read, if I imagine. I don't remember reading any before this, but it's a wonderful tale of a hobbit who wants to live nicely in his house under the hill, and the wizard Gandalf comes to send him on an adventure. And if you've never read it, I highly recommend it. It is a classic. It is a story that I look forward to reading aloud to my son when he's older. And this is just a must read and a reread for me. And next we have The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Now, I guess some might quibble with me putting this in a fantasy novel recap, but a lot of things online classified it as fantasy. It's a Greek mythology retelling, but there's gods and mythical beasts and vague magic of a sort, so I'm comfortable putting it in this video just for that sake. But this was published, I believe, in 2012 by Madeline Miller, who also wrote Circe, which I have not read, but would like to. And The Song of Achilles is the story of Achilles and his friend Patroclus through part of the Trojan War, as told in the Iliad. And this story is told through the eyes of Patroclus and follows him from the time he is a young boy, and follows him into meeting Achilles for the first time and the development of their relationship from friends to lovers, and then as they continue to develop and train and eventually partake in the Trojan War and the events of those. I guess I won't spoil what happens in case you haven't read the Iliad, but it's a beautiful story. It's heartbreaking, emotional, and I don't know that I expected to like this as much as I did. I know it's a very hyped book online and on BookTok and things like that, so I was a little hesitant going into it, but I did really, really enjoy it. It's an easy read. Madeline Miller's prose is not overdone in my opinion, but still brings a lot of emotional weight to the story, and I really enjoyed it. So I would recommend it if you like Greek mythology retellings. I think this book probably, in its popularity, sparked the onslaught of mythology retellings that have come in the last 10 years, I suppose. But yeah, so The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Now, these next 3 books, I'm not really quite sure how to talk about it, but I guess we'll try. Oh wait, no, not those. I'm gonna save those for last. These. I read Fourthwing and then Ironflame and Onyxstorm, the 3 books out in the Empyrean series by Rebeccayarros. I'm just gonna hold this one up while I talk about it. Okay, so Fourthwing. I probably need to do a whole separate video on my thoughts on the romantasy subgenre of fantasy, just because there's a lot of discourse about it online, a lot of conflicting opinions and thoughts and feelings. You love it, you hate it, and I have complicated thoughts about it, maybe because of all that discourse. I don't know that I would have complicated thoughts about it if other people didn't make it complicated, but that's neither here nor there. The only other romantasy books that I have read besides the 3 Fourthwing books are the A Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J. Maas. And those are very different series. My thoughts about them are somewhat similar. How do I talk about these? Well, so these follow, our protagonist is Violet Sorrengail. She is the daughter of General Sorrengail, who is her mother, who's one of the main military leaders of their home country, Navarre. And Violet has lived her whole life expecting to become a scribe like her father was, but instead her mother sends her to become a dragon rider, and she enters this war college where she's going to train to become a dragon rider. And it's quite a perilous war college. Lots of dragons, there's a love interest, of course, and did I have a good time reading these? Yes. Are they the most well-written thing in the world? No. Am I going to finish the series? Yes. I care enough. I'm interested enough in the characters and the storyline at this point to finish off the last 2 books. Is it also apparent that this was originally supposed to be a trilogy and was stretched out to 5 books for the sake of making more money? Yes. But I had a good time. I had a good time reading it, despite all the flaws, despite the story problems I had with it, despite some of the character annoyances. It was a good escapist read. And maybe that's all there is to it. I don't know that it has to be any more complicated than that. So, yeah, if you need a good beach read, if you need a good, easy summer fun read that doesn't take a lot of effort to think about, try it, you know? Okay, now these last 3 books that I have probably been some of my favorite that I have read this year so far. They are the Arthurian saga by Mary Stewart, and that is the Crystal Cave, the Hollow Hills, and the Last Enchantment. And technically there's a 4th book called This Wicked Day that I also have that I just haven't wanted to start yet because I don't want it to be over. I really even procrastinated on reading The Last Enchantment because I knew that kind of brought one part of the story to a close, and I've loved these books so much. I just adore them. They are a retelling of the King Arthur myth through the eyes of Merlin. And okay, let me just hold up one book, kind of like I did before. And it starts with, in the Crystal Cave, it starts with Merlin as a very young boy, the bastard son of a Welsh princess. He has no idea who his father is. His mother has refused to tell anyone, so he looks for his father in every man that he sees, and he desperately wants to know who his father is. And he also begins to recognize the power or the magic that he possesses, and begins to learn that art from another old enchanter. And this first book is his story from being that young boy to learning some about his power and his travels in increasing that, and coming finally at the end of the novel to the conception of King Arthur. And it's just, it was such a beautiful story for me. I guess Merlin has never been my favorite character in the King Arthur myth, but this series might have changed my mind, at least from Mary Stewart's portrayal of him and the relationship he has with his father, and the relationship then he later has with Arthur and other people. It's just a stunning story that I will absolutely reread. I loved every bit of it, and I can't say enough. And these are relatively, when were these first published? Okay, this was published in 1970. So these are a little older. And I guess my first introduction to Arthurian retellings was last year. I read The Warlord Chronicles by Bernard Cornwell, and I loved those books so much. Loved them. And so I went looking for more Arthurian retellings. I went online and I searched. I said, what are other good ones? And these were highly recommended. So I was just kind of on the hunt for them. And then at my library book sale, I found the first two. And so I picked them up immediately. And then later at my used bookstore, I found The Last Enchantment. So I just decided that the universe was telling me, yes, you are meant to read these, and it has been worth every bit of it. I also highly recommend The Warlord Chronicles, another wonderful retelling. Bernard Cornwell is a masterful storyteller. He pulls you along. Now, that series, I would say, leans more historical fiction than fantasy. Now, and I guess you could quibble again with these two about placing them in the fantasy category, but I think most people put these in that category, or historical fantasy. I know the King Arthur myths can kind of bridge the gap a little bit, but I think anyone who reads fantasy would really enjoy these. The differences between this series and the Warlord Chronicles are pretty stark. The Warlord Chronicles is much more focused on the battles and the military achievements and soldiers than this. This is focused on Merlin, his magic, his participation in Arthur's life, and the part he plays in Arthur becoming king. Battles are kind of in the background, except for one instance. I think they're all off page. And so if that's what you're looking for, if you're looking for the war aspect of the King Arthur myth, go to the Warlord Chronicles. If you want more of a relational, magical kind of story, come here to Mary Stewart. I love both equally. I will reread both, but if you're looking for different things, those are kind of the main differences, I think. But yeah, I just loved these so much. So if you have any other Arthurian retellings that you love, tell me, send them my way. I am very interested in reading more of these. I have some on my TBR already on my shelf. I have The Once and Future King by T.H. White, which has been on my TBR for a long time and I still need to read. So I should get to that later this year. And I also have The Mists of Avalon by Marion Zimmer Bradley, which I also found at my library book sale for like $2. So those are probably the next ones I'll read, but I would love to get more recommendations. I do also want to read, the more foundational texts when it comes to Arthur, Le Morte d'Arthur, and Geoffrey of Monmouth's work and things like that. But I have enjoyed kind of working my way backwards with these, at least for right now. But yeah, I'm very open to recommendation for those. So that is it for the fantasy books I've read so far this year. I have a lot more to come, I believe, but those are what I've read so far. And I'll do another recap, I'm sure, of these. But I've read a lot of other books, but I kind of liked grouping all the fantasy ones into one video because I know not everybody reads fantasy, and that's only a portion of what I read. I'll read other genres as well. So that's kind of wanted to group them all together for this video. But I hope everyone has a fantastic holiday weekend, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks.